Hi everyone, welcome to the video. In this one, I'm going to continue talking about scanning that you can do using Metasploit. Okay, in the last video, we actually looked at how you can do passive information gathering where you are not sending any packet to the host. So we use some tools like the DNS enumeration, and I have shown you how to use the search tool to figure out where to go to find those different tools. And in this video, we're going to focus on the active scanning with Metasploit. Okay. So this we have covered in the previous video. We looked at some Shodan charts and how to figure out if you have a honeypot. And this one we are mainly going to focus on the port scanning. Now, port scanning you can do it with Nmap, and we'll cover that in a future video. In this one, we're going to look at what kind of scans are already available within of the Metasploit framework, which is one of the most popular pen testing framework out there. So we're going to start with this. Okay, so it's if I go to my Kali Linux 2022, open up a command prompt, and in the newer version, when we log in, we don't log in as a root. So what we'll do from here, let me just open up my Metasploit. Okay, and notice again, when you open it from this application menu, it actually runs the database initialization command msfdb, and then it opens up the msf console, which is good. So now it's starting the database and it will open up the msf console, and we should be ready to start with it in a minute. So just give it a second. So it's there. uh, Always what I do, I start with the db status to check whether my database connection is good, and it says everything is nice. The next thing that I'm gonna do is really quickly look at if there's anything already available in my host file, and I don't want to cause any damage to any of this IP. So I'm just gonna clear this one up by running host-d, and that should delete all of my hosts. Now if I run the host command again, I have no more hosts in here. Okay, so I'm ready to do some scanning. So I'm within the Metasploit, and the version I'm using is 6. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna search for PORTSCAN. That's what I want to do in my environment. And let me reduce the font just a little and rerun. I need to reduce a little bit more. Rerun. Okay, now maybe you can, no, it's, I'm getting too much of it. So let's see, port, let's do port scan. Okay, that's much better. So when I did the port scan, okay, if you look at all the results that I have, okay, they're all part of the auxiliary module. Okay, so auxiliary module is where you go and really you do all the information gathering. And what you see, there are multiple different type of port scan available. You have FTP bounce, you have NAT PMP port scan, you have router port scanner, then you have the Christmas port scanner, you have the ACK, TCP, and the SYN. These three are probably the most commonly used. Okay, the first one is called the TCP ACK firewall scanner, TCP port scanner. This is what we're gonna use. We can also look at the SYN scanner, okay, which will make the scanning go faster, but since there is no three-way handshake, actually the scan will take much longer period of time. Now, once you have this, the easiest way to get started with that scan would be to use one of these. And with the new version of the Metasploit, you can just say, okay, use, and then whichever result you want to use. Say I want to use this one, and that's the uh, fifth index in my results. So I'm just gonna say use 5, and what's gonna happen? I used to be in the MSF6. Now I am inside scanner port scan TCP. Now over here, I always start with info. So if I do info, it is going to tell me everything about the particular TCP port scan module, okay, that I have. Okay, for example, it's saying it's TCP port scanner, the module, and it's part of the Metasploit framework. Who is the author? Chris, thank you. And then what we have, go to the bottom. We just copied a bunch of stuff, and here the basic options that you need to set for this particular tool. Okay, and I also have a little bit of description. Enumerate open TCP services by performing a full TCP connect on each port. So it will do the full SYN act, so all three, and this does not need administrative privilege on the source machine, which may be useful if pivoting. That's a very important thing. So if you want to move from one machine to another, and if you're doing pivoting, for this particular scan, you do not need administrative privilege. That's again, I want to repeat that one more time. For TCP scan, you do not need administrative privilege, but what you will see for SYN scan, you will. So to make sure that you remember the difference, TCP scan, you do not need any pivoting whatsoever, any kind of permissions. All right, so what we will do here, let's clear up the screen just a little. So if I do host, I still have nothing configured. Okay, a lot of time you can also run options to say if there's anything that you need to configure. Okay, over here, this our host current setting, you see it's missing. Okay, but it's a required parameter, so you have to set the current host setting. So we have to set the host. Now, what I have in my environment, I have another Metasploitable. It's running, and I know the IP address. You can actually scan multiple IP address or a whole CIDR block. But for my lab environment here, I'm just gonna say set RH and put the tab, and then just specify the IP address 192.168.1 1.23. Now, if you had more IPs in there, say if you have two, you could easily say 192.168, say 122, and you can keep going. Or you could have also said, okay, 0/24. That will pick up the whole CIDR range, right? But for the demo purpose, I have just decided to scan that one IP. So set rhost, if I do that, now this rhost is now set. If I run this options command again, let's see what happens. And if you see the rhost, this current setting is now set properly. The other thing, you can try changing this thread. If you want to make your scan go faster, you can also change the thread if you like. So th and then tab. The default is 1. Let's make that 10. Okay, again, if I run the options again, you see that particular value that I had set previously 1, now it's set to 10. And I think that's all you need for the TCP scanners to be successful. And right now, just hit the run command and let's see what happens. And look at that. So it started the scanning. Okay. So it's going to the IP address and it is looking for the open ports that we have, like port 22. That means SSH is on. 21, that means your FTP port is open. 80, someone is running HTTP server in there, and it will continue uh, the port scan. And by default, I have 1 to 10,000 ports. I should have probably reduced that to 1 to 1,000 maybe. And you can also select like the number of ports that you really wanted to scan if you don't want to scan all 1,000 ports. So those, if you add those parameters, what will happen? You will not be wasting time scanning a bunch of ports that you don't care about, right? So now it has gone up to 445. So that time between 80 to 445, that's what it took. Okay. So this scan will continue and give you the results. I'm gonna pause and not let you just wait on the scan to finish. And I'll be back in a second. Actually, what I'm gonna do, I just pause the scan because it's gonna take a long time. What I'll do, I'll come back over here. I'm actually gonna update the ports and choose a smaller window, say 1 to say 500. That's what I care about. So one more time, if I sit and run the options command now, my host is set to 192.168.123, and I'm only interested in scanning this particular ports from port 1 to 500. And let's also update the threads to 10 to maybe 100. Okay, so let's do threads and then 100. And let's one last time, let's do the options, and I think now I like everything the way I have it. So let's you can also run one interesting command, show missing. So if there's some required field that you have not set, if you run this command, it's going to tell you right now nothing is showing up. That means everything I have set properly. So I'm going to run the command again, and it should start the scanning, and hopefully this will go much faster this time. But I'm going to pause and come back as soon as this scan is done. Hopefully it's only going to scan up to port 500. All right, looks like my scan is finally done. It took much less amount of time, right? Because I only said just go up to 500, and that's what it looked, and my scan is done. Uh, so that's really how you are going to use this port scanner. So again, if you look at what we did, we searched for port scan. Okay, that gave me all the list of the available scanner modules, and we were interested in the TCP. That's where we started. And in here, we are still in that module, right? We said options. To look at what kind of options we have, we ran the info command to figure out, okay, to understand that module just a little bit more. Then we configure our scan as per our requirement. Okay, now let's go back, and now let's see how we can do the SYN scan. Now again, TCP is a full TCP scan. That means all handshake, three-way handshake, all of them are done in a SYN port scanner. Okay, it is, we're going to use the raw SYN scan. So it is definitely going to reduce the number of packets, but as I said, this is never going to complete the three-way handshake, and the scan time is actually, it will take much longer for the scan to figure out which ports are open and which ports are not, and the configuration is a little different, and you run into a permission issue, and that's what I wanted to show you. So one last time, let's do search port scan, and here is the SYN. So if I just say okay, use 6, okay, and then if I run options, now notice we are now in the SYN module, we are no longer in the TCP. If I say options, or let's start with actually info. Okay, now if you do info, it is now, it should say that it's a TCP SYN port scanner, right? It's auxiliary module, and again you have a whole bunch of different things, and again you see the R host is not set anymore. That was only set for the TCP module, so we have to do it again. In here, let's just run show missing because we haven't set anything. So it's telling, hey, you have all those settings in here, but at least you need the R host. So let's set the R host as well. So um, set R hosts to 192.168.1.23. Now this one actually is a little bit more involved. So if you, let's try to run the scan first. Okay, see what happens. Okay, so if I try to run the scan, what is telling, hey, runtime error is 0, you do not have permission to capture the device. And that is what I was telling you about when we did the TCP scans. We didn't need that, but for this SYN scan we do need that permission. So let me show you how to run this scan. If I can open another window, maybe give me 1 second. Okay, I'm in a different window. Let's try sudo su. So that is how you become a root in Kali Linux, right? Here I'm gonna open the MSF console now. Okay, So this is a separate instance than what I have in the other command window behind the scene. In this one again, I'm going to do search for port scan. Okay, and again the TCP SYN scan is on 6, so I'll say use 6. And again, I'm gonna check for so missing in here. I don't have any R host set, so let's set the R hosts to 192.168.1.23, and let's try to run this. Let's see what happens. So by default, it is probably gonna use the interface, the ETH0, the ETH0 interface for the scan. Uh, and you see that now everything is working properly. But I'll give you a couple more things in here once the scan is done. So if you're using a different interface that is not ETH0, you can set it properly. Now this scan, you would see that it takes actually a little bit longer than a TCP scans. And again, by default, it's really scanning way more stuff. So actually, let me just pause and look at options again for this one. Second, looks like this one by default is going to scan 1 to 10,000, which we do not want. So let's just set the ports as well to set ports to say 1 to 500. That's what we want. And again, threads is by default 1. Let's increase that as well. So threads 100. And that should be good. Let's now run it. Okay. So we'll just let it run for a few minutes, and once the scan is done, we'll take a look what's going on. Yeah, let's keep going. So it figured out the 21 and 22 is open, and it will go up to port 500, and then we'll review what we have done, and hopefully we can end the video there. All right, looks like this scan is done, and I can tell you that I waited much longer for this scan to be done. And as I said, it is only two-way handshake. It does not complete the act, the final packet. It doesn't wait for that. So it sometimes it has hard time to figure out whether the ports are open or not. So the main thing, if you review what we have done in this video, we looked at active scanning that are available within the auxiliary module for Metasploit, and we have actually worked on both TCP and SYN Scan. And I told you that for TCP scans, you do not need the root privilege, but to run the SYN Scan, you do. And that's probably all you need to know at the moment. Um, so that's it. So hopefully this video is going to give you some insight to run these kind of scans with Metasploit, and use it, try it out. And if you have any questions, please uh, ask the question in the comment window. If you like, please give me a like and share it. Share with your friends. Thank you. Bye bye.